Hey everybody, welcome to our Facebook launch party for Marriage in the Middle. Today's the day that it releases into the world. I'm just going to give you a little quick summary of what this party is going to include. I'm going to share some pertinent details about the book. I'm going to read a short excerpt, answer a few questions. Friends are going to pop in. Christopher is going to sing an original song, which is going to be awesome. And then we're going to give out a few prizes throughout the whole night. And the goal is that we're going to be done by 9 o'clock. Also, full disclosure, because one of the goals for this party tonight is to help get the word out about the book, I'm going to be asking you for some favors, but you have complete autonomy. You can say no, you don't have to do any of these things. But if you're able to, that would be awesome. So, a little funny story. A few weeks ago, I saw a new doctor, and when we were having that, awkward chit chat before the exam starts, he asked me what I did, and I said that I was an author, and he said, "Oh, do you have any books?" And I said, "Well, actually, I have a book coming out in a couple of weeks." And then when I told him what it was about, he just kind of stopped and he looked at me and he was really serious, and he said, "What gives you the authority to write that book?" And I just thought, wow, that was a pretty direct and confrontational question. I mean, like, I didn't ask him what his credentials were before he looked at my leg, but whatever. So my response was, well, I've been married to the same person for 29 years and we still like each other. So that counts, right? As I wrote in my first book, Making Marriage Beautiful, Christopher and I do not have a perfect marriage. And that's because I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect marriage. I think that's a myth. And I don't consider myself a marriage expert. I actually don't believe anybody could be an expert in something like marriage. Perhaps you could be an expert in like red spotted newts or what happens to copper when you heat it up to extreme temperatures. But marriage is pretty unpredictable. People are unpredictable. So I kind of back away from saying that I'm a marriage expert.
And the truth is that we've worked hard to get where we are. And we are very different people, as is evidenced in both books. One of the ways is Dorothy's very measured. Her book was probably 160 pages. If I was writing on the same subject, it would probably be more like 500 pages because it's just more words come out of me. When she's in the kitchen, she's very sequential and the meal is done on time. When I'm in the kitchen, I just kind of spin and orbit and spin and orbit. And then about a half hour after time, it all gets done and it tastes okay.
Tastes great.
Yeah. And time-wise, Dorothy is actually measured in her time. She understands that time has boundaries. And I tend to push past those boundaries and see it as life is the eternal now and there is no such thing as time. And for us to actually name those differences and not just have them be charming stories, but actually be things that bring about conflict and challenge, that we've, through naming them and offering them toward God, we've learned how to not resent each other for those differences and how not to constantly be trying to reform the other person, but to be able to receive that other person as a gift. And that's a lot what Marriage in the Middle is about, is that ability to receive the otherness of the other and the inconvenience of the other, and in a kind of an existential embrace to say, I think this is what God meant for me, and this is a good gift.
So this is my first ask. What I would love is for anybody who is tuned in to hit the share button so that your friends will know that I wrote this book. All of my friends know, and to be honest with you, I think probably all of my friends are really sick of hearing about this book. But if you were to hit the share button and write something in the comment section like, hey, my friend Dorothy is releasing her book today on Marriage in the Middle. And if you watch this Facebook Live event, you'll be able to learn some more about it. And then after you share, write in the comment section, I shared. And then you'll be eligible for the first giveaway, which is a $25 gift card to Hearts and Minds bookstore. And if you're not familiar with that bookstore, you should be if you're a reader, because it is a really terrific bookstore. And then we'll pick the winner in like 2 minutes. So there's no rush to do this. But again, if you just hit share and then let us know in the comment section that you did share. And then we'll name the winner in just a couple minutes.
And as you're sharing the link, I'm going to ask Dorothy a question. What is marriage in the middle? Give us the 1 minute, the 2 minute version of what this book is about.
I will admit that I'm not very good at elevator pitches. You know, the notion of condensing 18 months of work into 60 seconds or 120 seconds is not really in my skill set, but I'll give it a shot. So it's an honest, practical, hope-filled exploration of how we can navigate the challenges and surprises of midlife marriage and grow closer together while doing so. It includes interviews with diverse men and women who vulnerably share how midlife marriage has stretched them and how God has met them in the midst of it. So my premise is, though midlife can cause some serious disequilibrium, it also provides us with opportunities to grow and to invest in our marriages. And some of the topics that I cover include caregiving and saying goodbye to our parents, because often this is the time frame that our parents will pass away, shifting parental roles, facing disappointment, particularly disappointment that maybe has been accumulating over the years, health and aging issues, sex, infidelity, the need for community, how trauma affects intimate relationships, attachment issues, and then also the role of hope and the imagination in terms of how we think about what could be next. And I think I really wrote the book to speak honestly about the challenges of this time frame, to encourage proactivity and intentionality, and more than anything else, to bring hope to what can sometimes be a discouraging and overwhelming season.
So thank you for those who have shared. We have our first winner, and our first winner is Sophia Ma.
Congratulations,
Congratulations.
Sophia.
And Sophia, we will, by email, connect with you, getting you that $25 gift card. Our next giveaway, this is if you go now to dorothygreco.com and sign up for Dorothy's newsletter. If you've already done this, you don't do it again.
You don't do it again,
Right.
But you're still eligible to be a winner in this. So you can just tell us that I already did sign up.
Yes. So if you've not done that before, go to dorothygreco.com and you can click a box. You'll see a small box on the bottom left of the home page. You'll fill in your email address. You'll get a confirmation email back and a PDF about how to have a good fight. No, how to have healthy conflict, not how to win.
No,
it's not about winning, but how to negotiate conflict well. And you'll also get a link. We're having a party on Saturday that's got some art stuff happening. We've got a dance company performing, and I'm doing another song on Saturday. And so we'll send you that Zoom link for the party on Saturday.
So again, make sure you go to the comments section and say either I already did sign up or I am signing up. And this prize is going to be a signed copy of either one of my books and 8 original photo note cards, which if you haven't seen my photo note cards, they're actually quite lovely.
They're lovely. Yeah, this is actually, it's a water droplet inside of a leaf, which who knew that's what it would look like, but it's beautiful.
And for all of these gifts, I'm really sorry to say, but we can only do it for those who live in the lower 48, just because postage to go to Europe or Alaska or Hawaii is a little bit exorbitant. So again, note that you either did this or that you're going to do it in the comment section, and then in another moment or two, you know, you don't have to do it immediately. We will again pick a winner.
And while that's going on, I'm right now back in a classroom with students, and I'm teaching documentary theater, where students are telling stories to each other and performing verbatim stories for each other. This has just been a very fun way of experiencing theater over the years. And Dorothy has chosen, both in the first book and in Marriage in the Middle, to interview multiple couples and also to include their actual words in the book. And so do you want to just talk about why do that in this setting? What does that get for us?
Yeah, I think that diverse representation across sort of all metrics is important to me. And I feel like I can't assume that as a white woman, I understand what it's like to be an African-American or an Asian American in midlife dealing with some of these same issues. So I wanted to pull in other stories just so I could understand, but also to give readers potential hooks to connect to. And tool one, I think that Christopher maybe it was like halfway through the book, his first read through when he was reading the manuscript. And do you remember what you said?
Tell me.
He's like, these stories are so intense.
I did say that. I didn't know if I was allowed to say that here.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's true, they are intense because they're real stories from real people who have gone through some really difficult things, but they all end redemptively. And I think for me, historically, this has been true. When I hear other people tell their stories and share about God's faithfulness and the ways that he has come through, it really buoys my faith. It encourages me, it gives me hope. And so for each of the interviews they begin and end each chapter from 2 through 10, I think what you will discover as a reader is that their stories become a source of strength for you. And to me, that's really a wonderful thing.
And because we value the voices of other people around us and friends as well as colleagues, we have invited our friends Nick and Sheila Rowe to speak a little bit tonight about their experience of marriage. Nicholas Rowe is Associate Vice President for Student and Global Engagement at Gordon College. Sheila Wise Rowe is a writer, a speaker, an author. Her book, Healing Racial Trauma, The Road to Resilience, is a wonderful resource, and it's actually new. It's just come out from the same publisher as Dorothy's book in this last year, which just feels like a gift that this is happening at the same time. We lived across from Nick and Sheila, across the street from them, and then we lived across the world from them when they moved to South Africa. And then a few years back, we were so happy to hear that they were returning. And so we welcome them back and welcome them tonight to just share a little bit about their experience of marriage in this part of their lives, some of the things that they've learned. So Nick and Sheila, thank you for being with us, and we'll go to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Yeah. Thank you for inviting us here. And we've really enjoyed this work. It's given us a context to make sense of our midlife journey and experience. As Chris has said, we ran into the midlife reality while we were living in South Africa. So we lived there for 10 years. And I think one of the most challenging aspects of our marriage, and particularly our marriage in the middle, as it were, involved considerably a health crisis. So I had been suffering from renal disease. After we had been in South Africa for 5 years, my renal system had pretty much been shot and I needed to go on dialysis. And that imposes a completely different reality. I basically had to be on this machine for 3 days a week. If I'm not on that machine, I can die, right? So it's not like this is an option. But the side effects of being on that machine is that I'm running at 50% energy. I was lethargic a lot. I was a person involved in lots of different things and lots of different activities and really go all the time. I was involved in higher education there. And then all of a sudden, my capacity basically just shrunk in half. And so I became very much aware of my mortality. And it wasn't gradual. It was very rapidly realizing that my planet, my life on Earth was limited, my ability was limited, and I had to completely reconfigure and think about life, and particularly how I worked with my family and relationships in the midst of that reality. And that had a significant effect on how our family functioned and particularly how our marriage functioned.
Yeah. So it was a really difficult season for us, for the kids, And I have to say that we didn't handle it the best way, and that in that difficulty, it just felt for me that I just had to keep going. Like whatever it was that I was really feeling, and whether part of it was fear about his mortality, part of it was exhaustion because there were ways in which I felt like I needed to pick up the slack because he was had diminished capacity. So I was just on full tilt, and I was also doing in like full time ministry with homeless and abused women and children. And so I was on all the time. And in the midst of that, I felt like I could talk about what was really frightening for me around the kids. And that as Nick was going to dialysis 3 days a week, I was going to have to pick him up because we only had one car. And we were in Johannesburg, and I had some serious security concerns. So did he, about the kids and leaving them to go get him. So, they had school the next day. And so we'd have to put the alarm on and leave them in the house and go drive to pick him up from dialysis. And um, so I was able to share that. But the part of that where I felt that I was really carrying a lot, I wasn't able to share that. And because I didn't want to put anything on him. And yet it was there was a cost. There was a cost for me in that. And, as I think about how that whole experience caused us to grow closer, caused me to grow personally. Part of it was me opening up over time around this is how I'm feeling, and this is how this is impacting me. And that helped us in terms of our communication in our relationship. And then when he was able to get a transplant, and that was like 3 years in the start of him getting dialysis, there was a shift obviously in his energy level, and then I felt even more open to being able to share. But I do look at that time period with a bit of regret, and that I think like many other women, that we tend to kind of suck it up, and just not share for various reasons. We tell ourselves a reason why it's not okay and why we can't share or we can't be open. And so I wish I was more open at that point when I was in the midst of it, because then it wouldn't have felt like I was so alone in it. Um, and so I would say that the growth for me was really one of being a lot less strong, and a lot more open, that came out of that. And so that certainly was a really, really difficult and scary time, but we were able to see God with us through it, and that was amazing, and to see the good that came out of it relationally.
Yeah, even as I'm here listening to Sheila, I know similarly, I sort of was very internal about my personal feelings. I mean, I could talk to people generally about the disease and everything else, but my fears, right? Um, my father passed away without seeing his grandson. His father passed away without seeing his grandson, and really fear or hopes of really being able to live to see my grandchildren and important to them now were in jeopardy. But you know what? The limitation actually was a gift, because it forced me to reconsider a lot of priorities and to really realize that I had to pour into other significant areas of our lives that maybe had been neglected because we were all ministry gung ho, work all the time. And we're both people, when we're younger, of course, of very high capacity. So it's easy for us just to kind of go all day long and just leave what's left over to each other. And that was not a healthy balance, and it's not a healthy long-term balance. So now we're learning better how to do that. We're learning better how to be honest with each other about what we're dealing with, what we're facing. But it also promotes greater intimacy between the two of us, and to know that we are not by ourselves, even in the middle of marriage, right? That's one of the gifts of marriage, is to know that we're here to cover each other's back and to walk with each other through challenges, no matter what they look like. So that's been a critical gift to realize and to implement.
Yeah.
So you know what? We've been learning a lot of those lessons as we go along. I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed, I don't want to make sure this is upside down. Is this upside down? Was it upside down before? But one of the things that we really, really enjoyed this is how in Dorothy names that, right? She put a name to something that we were going through and not realizing that, hey, you know what? This is a real thing. And although no two marriages are alike, going into midlife and realizing the limitations that come upon us physically, a lot physically, but also emotionally and other things, force us to really take stock about what's critically important and to really make intentional choices to invest in those areas of our relationship. You know, it's our prayer that God gives us quite a few more years together so that we continue to bless others and to continue to glorify him just in our relationship all by itself. And so this book is fantastic. We've really enjoyed it. It'll be of real service to others who may be in the middle of it and are not trying to figure out what to do and go through that. So thanks a lot, guys. It's been a pleasure to join you this
really
time.
A blessing.
Really, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick and
Thank you
Sheila.
both. Thank you for the decades of friendship.
Yes.
Indeed.
In what we hear, and you ask the question, what's it like for you? And this is what comes out of us in midlife. If we pause and actually ask each other, what are you going through? And simply listen, there comes this great sense of shared experience and solidarity and a deeper connection, you know, across couples, but then to realize, oh, and we're not so alone in all of this, the sense that we're making this up as we go along. You know, the marriage is very improvisational in ways that they don't tell you when they're doing premarital. We do have a second winner, Terry Landon. You are our second winner, and we will reach out to you via email with your book and your cards. Thank you very much. And we're going to go now to the book itself. Dorothy's going to read a passage from the first chapter of the book.
The way that I set up the first chapter is I detail many really unbelievable and difficult things that Christopher and I went through 8 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And they were things that were external to our relationship, but they obviously deeply impacted our relationship. So I'm not going to detail those. You have to read the book to find out. But this is at the very end of the first chapter. In the course of that one disastrous year, Christopher and I had to navigate what felt like a decade's worth of loss and disappointment. Though the events shook us to the core, they also presented us with opportunities to trust God more deeply. Each time the bottom fell out, we had a sense of God's presence. Sometimes he held our hands during the free fall, and sometimes he met us at the bottom, but he was always there and always helped us to heal and to reconnect. Thanks to his abiding presence, we found our way through the losses and emerged more in love and more certain that choosing to marry each other was one of the best decisions we had ever made. The two of us have had to work hard for the marriage we now enjoy. Before we got married, Christopher and I had so much conflict that friends predicted a tumultuous first year. For the record, the first year exceeded our expectations. It was year 10 that nearly sunk us. We're both chronically opinionated and strong-willed, which has its benefits and its drawbacks. We've raised our voices, shamed each other, and withheld affection at the worst possible moments. In other words, we're normal people who often fail. Yet here we are in our late 50s, still appreciating each other's company, still discovering new things, still enjoying sex, and still excited about following Jesus together. Christopher and I have spent enough time counseling and pastoring other couples to know that not all marriages land where we have. Couples dig in their heels. Instead of acknowledging their contribution into the problems, they blame each other and either endlessly cycle around the same conflicts or lose their will to fight. There's no simple explanation for why we've made it and why other couples haven't, because we're all under unique stress during this time period. That does not mean that we will inevitably spin out or land in despair. One of the gifts of midlife is learning to recognize our own limitations, just as Nick was just talking about, and then extending grace to ourselves and others, especially our spouse. In fact, by choosing to accept and fully embrace our limited spouse, we can actually experience greater intimacy, both emotional and physical, deeper trust, and more fulfilling friendship. It's true that the disruptive nature of midlife can leave us longing for peace and stability. That said, perhaps the opposite of crisis is neither peace nor stability. Maybe it's discovery. And maybe the key for us is to use the crisis as impetus to grow. My hope is that all of us will not only make it through this season with our marriages intact, but experience profound transformation and joy in the midst of it. This book is an invitation to join me on that journey.
So, unlike many people, Dorothy has written 2 books about marriage. And in doing this kind of marriage thing, what have you noticed about this book? How is this book different than books that you've read and books that are out there?
There's a lot of marriage books out there. If you go onto Amazon and just put in the search engine marriage books, it's hundreds of thousands. And if you put Christian marriage books, it's still a lot. And one of the things that you might notice is that most of the books are all written by men. So I'm a woman, and I wrote this book not just for women, but also for men. One of the things that's interesting to me is on Google Analytics, when I check for my website readership, I actually have 10% more men readers than female readers. So I don't know whether it's,
You have sons?
26 years of figuring out how to talk to my sons that has made me a little bit more conscious of speaking to men. But either way, that's definitely a distinction of my book, is that I'm a woman and I'm writing to both men and women. 2, this book is specific to couples who are roughly in the age frame of 40 to 65. Though single friends and friends in their 30s have already told me that they have really, really enjoyed the book. And I want to be clear that the book is not directed to the middle of marriage. It's directed to people who are in midlife who are married. 3 is it's profoundly practical, but it's not formulaic and it doesn't rely on any cliches. And part of the reason is I don't think cliches work. I don't think formulas work because we're all organic, and every single one of us, as Christopher mentioned, it's all improv. Like, we have to find our way through. When my editor read through the first draft, one of her first comments to me was, "It's fiercely honest." And I didn't really know whether she meant that as a compliment or as an insult, but I decided to take it as a compliment. Christopher and I think, have a calling to vulnerably share our lives with other people. And that's not always easy, and it's definitely not for everybody. But when we live vulnerably, when we live honestly, what we have found is that that gives other people permission to also be honest. It sort of takes us all down a level. And then, we can have deeper relationship and more honest relationship. And obviously, this is a little bit tricky because we didn't write the book together. I wrote the book, and he just is coming along for the ride. So I had to make sure every phase of the writing that he signed off on what I was writing. Not just that he was okay with it, but he was actually like, "Yep, thumbs up, you got it." That was really important to me. And finally, and this is, I think, the most important component of the book, is it's really, really hopeful. I mean, my prayer almost every day as I sat to write was, "Lord, let this be a conduit of hope." So I want readers to finish the final page and feel this like surge of encouragement and empowerment and hope that you have what it takes to have a good marriage, that if you partner with your spouse and with God and with friends, that your marriage can actually get richer and better as the years go on.
I've prepared a song that we're going to play for you right now.
And this is the first time that it's ever been performed, is that right?
By me.
Yes,
it's been
right.
performed elsewhere, yes.
Okay, so we are going to go to the song now.
She who reconciles the ill-matched threads of her life and weaves them gratefully into a single cloth. It's she who drives the loud mouths from the hall and clears it for a different celebration, where the one guest is you. In the silence of evening, it's you. She it's she who drives the loud mouths from the hall and clears it for a different celebration, where the one guest is you. In the silence of evening, it's you. She receives. You are the partner of her loneliness, the unspeaking center of her monologues. With each disclosure, you encompass more, and she stretches beyond what limits her to hold.
Wow.
Let me give the context there. You missed a little bit at the top. That is a poem, one of Rilke's love poems to God, written in German, translated into English by Anita Barrows and Joanna Macy. I wrote that as a piece of music, actually separate from the poem. And then and I wrote that piece of music for Dorothy. I think it was a birthday. There was or an anniversary. And then I put those two together, and I felt that this image of she who reconciles the ill-matched threads of her life and weaves them gratefully into a single cloth is an image of what I've seen Dorothy be in this final text, that she stretches beyond what limits her to hold you feels like an expression of what Marriage in the Middle is about. It's that we name the limitation. We no longer deny it. We no longer pretend it's not there. We're fiercely honest about our own and about the limitation of our spouse. And we stretch beyond that limitation in order to embrace God. And there's something, this is about marriage. And this is also about what it means to have faith in Christ, that the two are bound up together. And it feels to me, because I've seen Dorothy live this way, that she feels to me to be uniquely qualified to share that message with authority.
I should have told that to the doctor. Didn't think of that. So obviously, hugely grateful for that. Thank you. And I wouldn't be able to have finished one, let alone two books, without Christopher's support and backing and prayer and encouragement. I couldn't make it through without him.
One more giveaway. This is a $50 gift card to either Amazon or Hearts and Minds bookstore. And this would be for someone who orders the book tonight. And in there's going to be a link to the side in the comment section there, and you can go ahead and order the book and then let us know that you did order the book, or that you've already ordered the book, or that you ordered 5 copies, for example.
That would give you extra points toward the prize. And if you don't want to do it right now because you'd have to go get your credit card or whatever, just say, I'm going to order it tonight. You don't know, we totally trust you. And then again, we'll choose a winner in a minute.
So we have a little time. If you wanted to ask a question, that question could come to us. I'm going to ask Dorothy a question while you piece that together if you have a thought. This is your second marriage book. So how is this one different than Making Marriage Beautiful? Like, how was the process different? It's a different book, right? So how did you do that?
Yeah, it's a very different book. It's not like a repackaging of the first book. You know how like there's one particular series of books that's about, we'll say it's about fences. It's not really about fences, but and there's fences for dogs and fences for couples and fences for teens and fences for, and they're all good books, but they're all kind of the same book. These are two very different books. Because I only had written the book 4 years ago now, not that much has happened in our marriage. We're still married to the same, to each other. And I didn't want to tell any of the same stories. So that meant that I had to really dig deep to get down to some really essential truths, some things that perhaps I would have overlooked before. So it made me work a lot harder. This book also has a lot more research in it. So in that sense, I read, if you look at the end of the book, there's an appendix with a whole bunch of resources listed. So it was a lot more reading, a lot more piecing things together. And because the subject matter is more sober, is more serious in this book, I felt kind of a heaviness as I was working through it. And the couples that I interviewed, I think that it wasn't as easy to interview them this time as it was for the last book, because I was asking them to go into difficult spaces as well. So I think that, and I guess in talking to other authors, what I've heard is that the second book is much harder because the first book, has been in us sort of percolating for years and years and years, and then it just kind of comes out, which is, in some ways, it felt like Making Marriage Beautiful. It didn't write itself, but it was just, it flowed much more easily. This one was a lot more work. So yeah, I think that's probably the primary thing. So again, if you have any questions, and you could certainly just leave them in the comment section, and I can go into that after we close off tonight. My final ask for everybody, and this is if you don't know this, it's a really important thing for authors, that after you read a book, if you can write a review for Amazon and other bookstores as well, but Amazon is really the most consequential one. It really gives an author more traction, because then, if an author or if a potential reader Googles, marriage books in midlife and say that there's 3 of us who have written these books and one person has 500 reviews and one person has 10 and the other person has 2, they're going to be most likely to go to the one that has 500 reviews. So think about just writing short review in Amazon after you finish. And if you can tell friends about the book, also hugely important because word of mouth is the best form of advertising.
So I do have a final winner here. So this is for the $50 gift card. Mary LaFrance Rawls, you are the winner. And Mary, if you can email Dorothy through dorothygreco.com.
To the website.
We'll keep your name and expect to hear from you, but that's how we'll get it to you, is by you reaching out to us through the website.
And that's a great way to learn more about my work. There's tons of articles that I've written over the years for many different publications that you can find information about the first book. And as we showed you on the cards, I actually have worked as a professional photographer for about 35 years. So there's also lots of really great photographs there.
We do have one question.
Okay.
How many marriage books have you read?
Ooh.
Yeah, do an estimate.
For this book alone, I would say I probably read 15 or 16 marriage books. And some of them were really awful. If you go to my Goodreads, like the 1 and 2 star reviews, some of them that I rarely will give that kind of a review to a book because I understand how hard it is to write a book. But some of these books were really, really dire. You know, advocating partner swapping and, you know, just really like, I don't understand why you're calling this a marriage book. So yeah, but there were some good ones that I read too. So again, if you want to go to Goodreads, follow me on Goodreads, then you'll have a sense of many of the books that I read as I was researching this. So thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I also want to give a special thanks to my launch team who have really served me over the past couple of weeks, helping me get the word out. So thanks to any of you who are watching tonight. Thanks to Apricot Author Services for running the launch team and for helping me get liftoff. And I'm also grateful to Arena for doing all the background stuff here and for our son and daughter-in-law who are sitting just a little over here. Could we call you newlyweds? It's been a little over a year, so I guess they're not newlyweds anymore, but they've been helping do the background work, so thank you both. So we wanted to say blessings to all of you.
This is a kombucha toast.
Yes, it's kombucha. To Marriage in the Middle. Thanks for stopping by.